Okay, let's dive right into this. If you're tuning into this explainer, there's a really good chance you know exactly what it feels like to be just utterly exhausted. And I don't mean physically tired. I'm talking about being mentally drained from spending so much of your life trying to adapt to an environment where you just feel completely out of place. You know the feeling, right? You might look around at how easily everyone else seems to navigate their careers, their friend groups, their daily routines, and you just kind of wonder why it feels like such an uphill battle for you. Well, today we're going to unpack exactly why that is, and we'll be using some truly fascinating insights from psychology to do it.
So why do you feel so out of sync? It's incredibly easy to just assume that feeling lost or disconnected means you're somehow broken, or that you're doing something wrong. But psychology actually shows us that being different doesn't always mean being the loudest or the smartest or the most noticeable person in the room. Sometimes rarity shows up simply in the way a person thinks, how they process their feelings, and how they view the world. I mean, so many people spend their entire lives endlessly trying to adapt to their surroundings, but some of us, we just naturally operate in ways that feel entirely different from the crowd. If you're struggling to find your path right now, it's highly likely you possess a rare psychological profile. You aren't broken at all. You literally just operate differently.
And that brings us to a seriously empowering shift in perspective. Your differences are actually your compass. We really need to stop looking at these unique psychological traits as weird quirks or social flaws. Instead, try thinking of them as a highly reliable, built-in navigation system. If you're out there trying to figure out what you're actually meant to do with your life, the 5 psychological signs we're about to explore are going to help guide you toward a path that genuinely aligns with who you really are.
All right, let's jump straight into our first sign. Number 1, seeking purpose over excitement.
Think about the general culture we live in today. The crowd is almost always chasing the next new thing, constantly asking, is this fun? But your rare mind, it's asking a much heavier, much deeper question. Does this actually matter? Psychology suggests that some people are just naturally driven way more by purpose than by novelty. And honestly, this is exactly why the standard run-of-the-mill career paths might feel so incredibly unfulfilling to you. If your internal compass points strictly toward meaning, you are never going to be satisfied on a path that only offers a quick thrill. Recognizing this about yourself is absolutely crucial. It's the first real step to finding a path that actually fits.
Moving right along, let's look at our second navigational trait, number 2, the power of pattern sensitivity.
Have you ever walked into a room and instantly picked up on a tiny shift in someone's tone of voice, or noticed a super subtle, unusual behavior? Well, that is what psychology calls pattern sensitivity. You see, you don't just passively watch what happens in front of you, you actively notice what changes. When you're trying to find your path in life, this heightened awareness is like a superpower. It allows you to read a room and just sense when an environment is right or totally wrong for you, usually way before anyone else even has a clue.
And that naturally leads us into our third sign, number 3, embracing the subtle distance.
It's kind of a strange paradox, right? You can truly enjoy being around people and really value connection, yet you still feel slightly out of sync with them. It's so important to untangle this from true loneliness. Loneliness is that deep feeling of being completely isolated. But what you're experiencing, that's subtle distance. Psychology points out that your distinct differences in thinking styles actually create this feeling. It's definitely not a lack of love or empathy, it's simply a byproduct of how your brain processes the world. It doesn't mean you can't build an amazing community, it just validates that your social experience is, well, unique.
All right, let's move on to our fourth trait. Number 4, thinking before reacting. In a world that constantly demands instant opinions and immediate action, you naturally operate at a completely different speed. When something happens, most people skip right to a reaction. Boom, done. But for you, there's a vital second step in the middle. You take the time to mentally process and examine reality first. Only then do you reach step 3, which is a conscious reaction. Your rare mind doesn't just immediately absorb reality like a sponge, it meticulously examines it, kind of like a scientist under a microscope. Psychology actually links this reflective thinking to deeper cognitive processing. People might sometimes mistake your pause for hesitation, or they might even assume you're just not paying attention. But taking your time is actually a massive psychological advantage. When you're trying to chart a meaningful path for your life, deeply processing things before reacting allows you to make carefully calculated, highly intentional choices, rather than just going with the flow. Which brings us to our fifth and final sign. Number 5, your psychological compass. You likely have this relentless driving need to understand your own deepest motives. Have you ever caught yourself just stopping and asking, why do I think like this? It is this constant, ongoing loop of deep self-inquiry.
Contrast that with the way so many people operate. Just moving through their entire lives on complete autopilot, literally never once questioning their own motives or why they react the way they do. But not you. Psychology actually has a name for this. It's called metacognitive awareness, which is basically a fancy way of saying thinking about thinking. If you're out there searching for your true path in life, this is the ultimate calibration tool for your internal compass. By endlessly analyzing your own patterns, you can figure out exactly what environments drain you, what tasks actually fulfill you, and what direction you truly need to head in.
So let's bring all of this together. Here are the 5 signs we've covered today. Seeking meaning over excitement, noticing those subtle details, feeling that subtle distance even with friends, thinking deeply before reacting, and constantly self-reflecting. Psychology makes one thing absolutely clear. Possessing these traits and being rare doesn't mean you're louder, smarter, or somehow better than anyone else. It simply means you process the world differently. These traits aren't loud at all. They are incredibly subtle.
I really want to leave you with this powerful thought directly from our source material today. The rarest people aren't trying to stand out. They quietly see the world differently. If you spent your whole life feeling exhausted from trying to fit in, just let that profound realization sink in for a second. You don't need to try to stand out, and you certainly don't need to force yourself to fit into a mold that wasn't made for you. Your quiet, entirely different perspective is exactly what makes you who you are.
So, I'm going to wrap up our explainer today with one final question for you to really ponder. Which of these 5 psychological traits feels the most like you? And more importantly, now that you understand it isn't a flaw but an actual feature, how will you use it as a map to navigate your true path forward? Seriously, stop adapting to environments that aren't meant for you, and start using your psychological compass to find exactly where you belong. Thanks so much for watching, and keep exploring.